Today, we're going to continue looking at how government intervention affects the market. In this case, we're going to look at price controls. There's two types of price controls. The first one we're going to look at is called a price floor. In this case, we're going to be looking at the market for wheat, and there's a specific reason for that. So, let's start by defining what a price floor is. First of all, it's a minimum price. So what that means is that the price can be anything above that, but it can't be anything below the price floor. We draw it in on a demand and supply diagram as just a horizontal line, and we'll call it price floor over here and just PF on the axis. It's going to be set above price equilibrium, so we're always going to draw it above price equilibrium here. The reason for that is because the government has to have the opinion to do this. They have to think that P star is too low. Otherwise, there would be no point of making a minimum price. Remember, if the market works on its own, it's going to end up at P star. But in this case, it's not going to be allowed to get there because the government's going to keep the price from falling all the way down to P star. If we put it underneath, the price would just stay at P star and the price floor would have no effect, and there's no real reason for that. So if the government thinks that P star is too low, well, why? Well, they must think that the price is too low for a certain group of people. Well, the price can't ever be too low for buyers, unless you're worried about the resource going scarce or something like that, but the market would fix that on its own. So the government's concern is that the producers, farmers in this case, the producers aren't going to make enough money at the given price. Remember, the amount of money the producer makes is going to be P star times Q star. That's going to be their total revenue, this box here. So the government wants to make their total revenue bigger, so let's see if we can get that done. You do tend to see these in agriculture, specifically agriculture, staple type crops. When we analyze putting a price floor in, let's go ahead and see how this is going to work. The government has put in a price control, so the price has gone up. Well, the law of demand and the law of supply are still going to be in effect here. So if the price goes up, of course the law of supply says that the quantity supplied is also going to go up. So we see that as the price goes up, we move up the supply curve until we get to the price floor, so QS will be supplied. The law of demand states that if the price goes up, quantity demanded will fall. So again, we move our way from the old price here up to the new price, and that's going to be the new quantity demanded. Now obviously, we're going to have more quantity supplied than there is quantity demanded, so that's going to lead to what we call excess supply or surplus. This can be a problem because remember, the whole point is to help the farmers out. Well, if I'm a farmer and I haven't sold this much, you haven't helped me out. So the way the government tends to solve this problem is to buy up all the excess wheat. So we're going to see that as a change in demand. The government wasn't demanding wheat before, but now they are. So this is just going to be simply seen as a change of demand from D1 over to D2, and that's going to occur until we get to this equilibrium point here at QS. Well, at this point, obviously the farmers have been helped out a lot, because not only do they get to sell their wheat at a higher price, but they also get to sell a lot more wheat, Q star over to QS. So their new total revenue is going to be PF times QS, so this larger box here. Let's quickly look at the effects of a price floor. We're going to look at consumers, suppliers, then the government. And that's a good approach to looking at any sort of government policy. So for consumers, you might think, well, the price has gone up, so that's a bad thing. Well, sure, it's not a good thing, but remember, the concern is that the price is too low. If the price is really low, making it a little bit higher probably isn't going to hurt that many people. Maybe a little bit, but for the most part, consumers are going to be okay. If you think about how much money an average consumer spends on wheat in a year, well, if you move it up by 5% or 10%, it doesn't really have an overall effect on their spending. Also, one thing that is good for the consumers is that plenty of this product is available. They don't have to go without it. You'll see with a price ceiling, which is the next one we'll talk about, that it causes scarcity. Consumers can't get what they want. You don't have that problem with the price floor. So overall for consumers, maybe it's neutral, maybe it's a little bit good, but it's not really the strongest point of our evaluation because it doesn't seem to take us one place or the other. For effects on suppliers, this is going to be overwhelmingly good. Obviously, their total revenue is going to increase by this whole area here, and that's going to be a good thing. Also, in the mindset of the suppliers and the mindset of the farmers, they're going to feel secure. They're going to feel like the government's taking care of them, and that's going to give them confidence to continue being farmers. Remember, farming is not a job that people make tons of money at. Depends on the economy, of course, but it can be something, you know, where people are just making enough to get by or whatever it might be. Giving them confidence keeps them in that business, and that's a good thing if we need food, and of course we do. So that is a very important effect, what we call business confidence. I put an asterisk by it because it's something that we'll talk about again when we get to macroeconomics. Finally, for the government, we need to remember that they can't do this with all products. Not just because they don't have enough money to, but because it's simply not practical. Something like wheat, the government has a good use for. They can take the wheat and feed people who can't afford wheat. They can send it to countries who are going through a famine or a drought or something like that. And another advantage of wheat is that it's easily stored. The government couldn't do this with a product that they didn't have a use for, like, bicycles. They can't buy up a bunch of bicycles and give them to disadvantaged people. I guess they could, but politically it's going to be troublesome to do. They also can't do this with things that can't be easily saved. So something like milk or oranges, something that's perishable, that's going to go bad pretty quickly. Well, they can't buy it all up and save it for a rainy day, because by the time the rainy day comes around, you know, the product will have gone bad. So because it's limited in its usefulness, the government can't use it for everything. But with a product like wheat, it works pretty well. The other bigger problem is that there's an opportunity cost. The government, to make this happen, is going to spend from QD to QS, they're going to spend that amount times the price. Well, that's a big chunk of change. That's a lot of money. And what that means is they can't use that money to do other things. So there's an opportunity cost of this policy, like everything else in economics. They can't use the money to build a school. They can't use the money to support other small businesses, give people flu shots, whatever it might be. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments below.